Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, December 16th City Council meeting. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Lindsay.
Here.
Alderman Glad.
Here.
Alderman
Here.
Bocci. Alderman Bassi.
Here.
Alderman Davis.
Here.
Alderman Cook.
Here.
Alderwoman Miller.
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I open it up for a public hearing for 2024 property tax levy in the amount of $3,112,374. I am opening it up for public hearing at this time. Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a public comment? Chris Moore, please press the middle button. State your name and address for public record.
Chris Moore, 2136 Concord Drive. The city levy, I know you may consider it a small amount. We already have the school board taking $200 from us next year. Now the city wants another $15 from us. There's different ways of trying to get money instead of trying to tax. You can't tax your way out of something, out of a hole, per se. You need to open your books. You need to find out what you can cut, transfer money from one area to another, instead of trying to tax everyone all the time. What's going to stop you from next year from doing the same thing? So you need to think about what you're doing. And this money, if it does pass, this money should only be earmarked something in particular, not to finish the boardwalk, if that's what the intention is. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public that would like to make a public comment? Seeing none. This time I'm looking for a motion to pass the 2024 property tax levy ordinance in the amount not to exceed $3,112,374. Looking for a motion. Alderwoman Miller.
I'll make that motion to pass the 2024 property tax levy in the amount not to exceed $3,112,374.
Thank you. Second. Alderman Sandy.
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion by City Council. Alderman McClatchy.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, I voted against the last levy increase. I just think it's sending a wrong signal. I don't care if it's 10 cents raising it. We're raising it, and during COVID, I wasn't on the council then. We cut back on a lot of things, and we found ways to make the city work. So I just think it's sending the wrong signal right now to raise taxes when the city is doing so good, and we got developers coming in, we've got all kinds of businesses. So that's where I stand on this.
Thank you. Alderwoman Bassi.
Thank you. I also voted no when we were discussing this earlier, and I thank Chris Moore for coming out because you kind of killed my thunder. Everything you said I was going to say, so thank you so much, and I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Alderman Cook.
Did we ever earmark this money to go to this specifically?
Carolyn.
We have not as of right now, but we will during the budget process. I will make sure to put it in the packet for the budget that the extra money will go to, and we'll talk about it during the budget.
So
we won't receive it until next year anyway. So we haven't even budgeted this money to come in yet, so we will discuss it.
yeah, I want to
Mm-hmm.
put
Yep.
an earmark on it and maybe a sunset on it.
Yep.
Any other comments by council? Alderman Glad.
You know, I think Alderman Cook brings up a good point as far as the fact that we don't have anything earmarked for this money. We're just bringing it in, and then we're going to discuss it later. Maybe we should be discussing next year's property tax levy down the road here rather than talking about taking the extra money in and then where we are going to wind up spending it. I've realized that, yes, we are expanding and, it will probably not affect everybody's taxes as far as going up, but if we leave it flat, just like we have, for most of the last 10 or 12 years, actually have reduced the amount, of property tax to every individual. Because every time we leave it flat and as we grow, there's more and more people paying into that same amount, so they're each paying a little less. And, again, we take in more money, as far as the levy. I think that money should be earmarked to some extent, ahead of time, rather than doing it now. And I'm still not exactly sure how I want to proceed with this. I know at the beginning, when we first asked, I was in favor of going forward, but at this point in time, I'm still a little undecided on it.
Any other comments? Alderman Miller?
Thank you. I just want, again, the public probably hasn't seen our whole packet, but Director Lynch has certainly put the words to me in our packet that each year that we've stayed flat or done a slight increase or a slight decrease has reduced the revenue to the city based on the value of the properties inside the city limits. So in essence, we've left money on the table by staying flat. This is a small increase, not to play catch-up, because you can never play catch-up, but to not leave money on the table for the increased values in the city. So this is just a small piece of the puzzle so that we can continue to provide the services at the rate that we are inside the city. Taxation is difficult. Budgeting is more difficult when you have to provide more with less. So I support the levy as presented, and I hope others do as well.
Thank you. Any other comments by council? Alderman Glab?
Yeah, I'll respond to that, and that's the fact that, do more for less, and yes, we've, asked staff on many occasions to do that. I remember the same comments being made, back to the first year when I made that motion to, have a flat tax, and, that was the outcry at that time, that we would not be able to survive, with a flat tax, and we left it for quite a few years with flat tax. So, like I said, more than anything else, we're going to collect more money. Where is that going? And I think to some extent, if I'm going to vote for it, I want to know where that money is going to, be spent. Why we need the money, and I think the public would feel the same way. I think to some extent, when we explain to the public what our percentage of the property taxes are and how much it affects what they pay yearly, and we're giving them good roads, and they're not waiting like Kensington was for all those years, people will take knowing where that money's being spent, and they will accept it, but they really are not too happy when we're adding extra property tax to them, and they don't see where it's going. And that's why I think we've got the cart before the horse to where we should be talking about why we need the money rather than what we need. Thank you.
Any other comments by council? Alderman Cook?
So the grand total with all the taxes, with that 1% and all that, comes up to what, 33,000 as a whole?
Carolyn? It's something like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
30 to 30. Yeah.
In order to improve the city, now that we know who's steering the ship, I think I'm in favor of it. It's a small amount. Yeah, I'm in favor of it, and it's, like I said, it's like $33,000, and to a city budget and all that, I still want it earmarked. you know, but, I can agree with that. It raises my taxes, so.
Actually, hopefully it lowers it, because once again, it spreads it out to the EAV, so the goal is to actually lower it, so. All right. Any other questions by council? See none? All right, clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
Alderman Glab,
No.
Alderman McClatchy,
No.
Alderwoman Bassie,
No.
Alderman Davis,
Yes.
Alderman Cook,
Yes.
That item has passed, thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone here, besides Bob and Chris, that would like to make a public comment? All right, so Bob, would you like to come up to the podium, state your name and address for public record? It looks like you're talking about Aqua, which we're going to have on the agenda here soon. Would you like to just make a public comment now, or would you like to wait till that item?
Mr. Mayor, you just called me up, so.
Yeah, no, I just
Now
realized
I
it's
will,
Aqua,
or-
so I just see
I'm
Aqua.
happy to waive, it's better for you.
Yeah, if you could wait till Aqua, sorry about that. I didn't look at the line item there.
I'm out of here.
Chris Moore? You wrote that, you're good? Okay. All right, anyone else from the public? See none? All right, consent agenda items, 6A through D. Is there any items that the council want to pull for separate consideration? See none, I'm looking for a motion to approve 6A through 6D. Alderman Santee?
I'll make the motion to approve consent agenda items 6A through 6D as presented tonight.
Second? Alderman Cook?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Discussion by these, on these items by city council? See none? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee,
Yes.
Alderman Cook,
Yes.
Alderman Glab,
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy,
Yes.
Alderwoman Bassie,
Yes.
Alderman Davis,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda is 7A, is Treehouse liquor license. Looking for a motion to approve a Class A1 liquor license to Treehouse Ventures McHenry LLC located at 2328 North Richmond Road, and to pass an ordinance amending sections 4-2-6 and 4-2-14 regarding alcoholic liquor license classifications and hours of the McHenry City Code. We have met with the applicants and been working with them a lot with their new business here, and so I would like to ask for a motion at this time for item 7A. Alderman Santee?
No, I will make the motion to approve item 7A, the Treehouse liquor license as presented, a Class A-1 liquor license, and located at 2328 North Richmond Road as presented, and ordinance amending Section 4-2-6 and Section 4-2-14 regarding the alcohol license classifications and hours under McHenry City Code.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Davis?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion by city council. The applicant is here. If you want to come up to the podium, that's fine. Any questions for the applicant at this time? Alderman Cook. You can say your name and address for public record.
Mike Ferguson. We live at 2571 Birch Drive. That's in Round Lake, Illinois.
Round Lake? Okay. No, that's fine. My question is that, you want this liquor license, I know it's limited. Is there a limit to how many drinks that you're gonna be giving an adult, per adult?
Yeah, so we don't necessarily put a cap or restrictions on people. Given the timeline and the business nature of what we are, I kind of wrote that into this as well. Hopefully you guys get a copy of that. It's very loud inside the treehouse. There's a lot of kids yelling and screaming. We try to make that as comfortable as possible. Unfortunately, given the nature of that business, most folks don't want to sit there for more than 60 to 120 minutes, tops. Our birthday parties are scheduled for 2 hours at a time. Our private events are scheduled for 2 hours at a time. So longest case scenario, you get somebody in there for 2 hours. In that time frame, if somebody is even consuming alcohol, they're likely having one. It's possible that they'll have a second. So we haven't found ourselves in a position to have really, nobody has ever been cut off for being overserved. So we've never found ourselves in a position to say, hey, we have an issue, how do we put a cap on something that doesn't exist? So we leave those decisions up to the adults. Most adults have come in to be responsible. found themselves sitting on a couch relaxing, more than likely just being on their phone. We're also not an environment where people go to directly to consume alcohol. There's bars and taverns for that purpose. Hey, let's go out and have a drink. We are not that environment. People come to us and say, hey, let's go out and have a good time with our families. Let's meet up and let our kids play. If alcohol becomes a part of that experience, again, it's very limited in nature.
Well, that's what I was, is there a limit, because Chuck E. Cheese is your competitor, I guess, kind of, sort of, almost. I'm just saying, they have a 2-drink limit for adults, and, they have their parties and everything else like that, and I was just wondering if you had something like that. I understand, me personally, when you're with the kids and all that, although you may need a drink with your kids, I'm just saying that, keep it at a minimum and stuff like that. I just want to know if you had some kind of rule in play.
Yeah, a thing about Chuck E. Cheese, I guess we're as well, like, they might have unlimited play, like, on video games and stuff, which might hold kids' attention for a while. 15 minutes in, if any of you end up bringing your kids or grandkids in, you're going to see that they're going to be wanting having snacks. They'll get through the equipment a couple laps, and then they're going to want to hang out and eat something. So, we just haven't ever gotten to the position where we've had to regulate something that has been a non-issue. If it ever got to that point, I think for sure it's something we would have to consider.
I'm not trying to put you in the category.
No, I understand.
And
I understand.
I'm really sorry.
Somebody called us a glorified McDonald's once, and that was more offensive. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
No worries.
Alderman Miller?
Welcome, McHenry.
Yes, we're excited.
Yeah, I'm excited after I read all of the information and obviously viewed you online. It looks like a nice place to hang. And I was excited to see your menu was obviously some crafty sandwiches. So I think for those of us who get our little people and need a fun place to go, it looks like it's going to be a fun hangout. So welcome to McHenry. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate it. We're grilled cheese themed for those who haven't seen the menu, and who doesn't like a good grilled cheese.
Right. Alderman Bassi?
Hi.
Hi.
I actually spoke to a friend of mine that lives in Lake Zurich, and he had nothing but good to say about your place, so I was really happy to hear that.
Thank you.
And he does only say stay between 1 and 2 hours, and that's it for him, just as you had stated. I do have a concern with your liquor license starting at 9 a.m.
Sure.
Would you be willing to move it to 12 o'clock?
We have birthday parties, and a hard no. No, I'm open to whatever works, with the folks in the village. However, we do have birthday parties that start at 10 o'clock on the weekends. So Monday through Friday we open at 9. Saturday, Sunday we open at 10. We do it sometimes during the week. We'll open up a little bit earlier, on the weekends we'll open up earlier if needed. But with the birthday parties at 10 o'clock in the morning, those parties will tend to have a mimosa. So any restrictions on total alcohol as a whole, moving it to noon, would mean that first group of parties would miss out on that experience moving it till noon.
And that's on the weekends that you can?
Correct.
So Monday through Friday, would you be willing to move it to 12?
Willing, sure. I think it would have, again, more, I think it was positioned as a 9 to 9, just given that we do host private parties after hours. 9 just allows us to do it when we're open. In Lake Zurich, we have unlimited restrictions on our alcohol, which means we could do shots and Jaeger bombs and all those things, which we of course don't. And as much as like you want to at times with the kids, we haven't gone that far. Moving it out to a different time slot would just mean we'd have more regulations that we have to follow about our staff and have to put things in place when, again, our current license, which is end to end, hasn't ever reflected us, people being intoxicated in and out of there in an hour, right, by 10 o'clock in the morning. I think it would just be a restriction that wouldn't have any preventative measures per se.
Okay.
So, my position on that.
Any other questions? Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Thank you. Do you plan on putting gaming machines down the road?
No, and we don't plan on doing adult gaming or kids video gaming.
Thank
we
you.
strictly want your kids to come in and play on our play structure.
Good. And welcome to McHenry, too.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions, comments? Alderman Glab?
I was gonna say that, my first thought is, liquor with kids is, not a good thing, you know?
Yep.
But then I think of my childhood, and, it was nothing we always had family parties, and, you know, alcohol was always part of it, and as long as everybody was, responsible enough to drink properly, you know, nobody ever thought anything of it, and I didn't become an alcoholic, you know, I mean, I waited till I was 21 before, you know, I went out to a bar, and the first thing you did was celebrate. Everybody does when they hit 21. So I don't have too much of a problem as far as alcohol here. However, I feel like, I think, was it Alderwoman Bassey brought up, I think, it's a little early at 9 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'd like to see it, noon, on any day. You know, I don't see why people, you know, need necessarily to bring their kids and start drinking at 9 o'clock in the morning. I just would feel more comfortable 11 or 12 o'clock. So that's my feeling on it.
Yeah, a comment on that would be, was it Saturday? We had Santa come in. We had 2 sold-out events on Saturday with Santa. It was pancakes and pajamas with Santa. It was a great event, huge turnout. Roughly 400 people in total between adults and kids came through the doors. The first event started at 9 o'clock. Went for 2 hours, because again, we push people over 2 hours, and it feels like they're forced to be there. During those 2 hours, we did offer alcohol, because we have that ability to sell, and we had, I think, maybe 6 mimosas that were sold during that time, but we did have a couple even mimosa towers that came through. So the cocktail arrangement is a little different naturally during those times. Even when you're there specifically to visit Santa, people still would enjoy an opportunity to meet with their neighbor, a cousin, a brother, sister, and enjoy a drink at 9. So.
Any other questions, comments? Alderman Davis?
Yeah, when my kids were a little bit younger, we've been to the Lake Zurich one for parties and, you know, just to hang out with other families and stuff like that. I don't have an issue with the alcohol, because the times that I've been there, I've never seen it get out of hand. It's not that type of atmosphere. Most of the kids that are coming are younger kids. They're not, you know, you would hope that someone's responsible enough to, if they're bringing their kids, especially little kids, that they're not going to be pounding shots and stuff. So I'm good with it.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right.
And I'd just say we do very limited marketing on alcohol. It's not a pitch that we present to parents at all. If you go through our social media and do see it, it's because we have a mimosa, and people are like, oh, I can go there and have a mimosa. The other thing would be because we support local breweries. We try to do everything local, Half Day Wing, Face Brewing in Lake Zurich. So we just try to bring that in and say, hey, we're a community supporter.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. You can
Thank
have a
you.
seat. Open it up for public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to make public comment regarding this item? All right, see none. Back to council. Any questions, comments for staff or I? Alderman Santi, go ahead.
This is a standard liquor license. It's 1 year, correct? So it's got to be renewed every year, correct?
Yep, just like a renewal.
Yeah, so if there's any, major concerns,
Yep.
it always comes in front of the council. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santi,
Yes.
Alderman Davis,
Yes.
Alderman Glab,
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy,
Yes.
Alderman Bassey,
Yes.
Alderman Cook,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller.
Yes.
Congratulations. Welcome to McHenry with a liquor license. So, thank you both for working so good with the staff. It's awesome to have you in McHenry. It's been years. Doug Martin's not here, but I know we called on the Treehouse in Lake Zurich for years, and it's great to finally see you guys in McHenry. So, welcome, and can't wait to bring my kids there.
3 people reach out to the training.
And when do you open? Because that's gonna, roughly.
Construction will be done hopefully by the first of the year. Equipment will be in by the first of the year. We've gone through a first round of interviews already with some folks, and we should have offers out by the end of next week for folks. So opening date, we're looking at with training February 1st.
Awesome. All right. Well, congratulations. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is Redwood Development Agreement, let's see, sorry, 7B. We're not going to ask for a motion at this time. I'd like to thank Redwood for returning after roughly 18 months with final plans and annexation agreement following the April 3rd, 2023 City Council meeting. After support of moving forward by the City Council at that time, I will ask staff to first introduce the item, and then we'll go ahead and have Redwood produce your item as well, and then we'll go to City Council for comments, questions, and then we'll go to the public for comments and questions as well. So, Ross, you want to go ahead and start us off?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep it brief because I know Paul's got some slides he wants to show you. So Redwood USA LLC is seeking approval of an annexation agreement to allow construction of 177-unit market rate rental townhome planned unit development. This is located on the southeast corner of Chapel Hill Road in Illinois Route 120. Approval of the annexation agreement would entitle the property owner with the following zoning approvals: preliminary plat of subdivision, zoning map amendment to RM1, low-density multifamily residential district, preliminary plan approval for a conditional use permit for a 177-unit market rate rental townhome planned unit development. Also included in this annexation agreement, provisions for a reduction in impact fees based on their actual water usage. This is what we did for Fox Meadows and Continental. Instead of using the very outdated IEPA standards, we get actuals from previous developments, and they pay their fair share with a contingency built on top of that. So it's technically a reduction from our fees. However, they're paying what they're using plus an additional amount for that contingency. And then provisions for the construction of an off-site oversized utilities that will enable future growth in and around that area. So they're bringing in sanitary sewer and water to the site. Provisions for a new roadway into their site, which portion of that will be dedicated to the city of McHenry. However, the main development itself is all private, so no road maintenance within the development itself. And then in the future, we will be bringing forward a recapture agreement that the developer may recapture some of those fees associated with extending the utilities, the off-site utilities. So developer will need to return to the City Council for final plan and plat of subdivision approval before construction. So I know I said I'd keep it brief. That wasn't that brief. But Paul is here from Redwood, and we've got some slides he wants to run through real quick just to give council an update. There were a couple council members that were not on the council when the conceptual came through. So those of you that reached out today, I want to thank you. Alderman Bassi, I called and had some questions. I hope Paul can answer these today. And then Alderman Sandy, you came in to visit me, and then Alderman Glab called as well. So I greatly appreciate that. But without further ado, I'll turn it over to Paul. You want to introduce yourself and go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again. It's great to be back. I know it's been a while. We had some things to work out with our seller, and finally had an opportunity to do that. So we're anxious. My name is Paul DeCrife. Corporate address 7007 Pleasant Valley Road, Independence, Ohio. But I'm, born and raised Chicago, and go Hawks. I know I have to say go Bears here. Doesn't work all the time. So. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Alderman. On behalf of my firm and Anthony Folkowski and Semk and his firm, we'd like to thank you again for this opportunity to present. We'd also like to thank staff all the way from when we've talked to Doug, Ross, Cody, and Greg. It's been great. It's been great to work with staff. We're pleased at the progress. And we're happy to be here. So with that, I don't want to bore everybody, but I do want to give everybody, those who are new, an opportunity to learn a little bit more about Redwood. As a point of reference, our closest neighborhood is in Volo. So there's a Redwood neighborhood in Volo already, right behind the old Skipper Buds. So if you have that point of reference, we go next. So, oh, I'm sorry. Oh. Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. So Redwood is a core value-based company, so I come before you and everyone when we speak, and we speak to you in very open and honest conversation. That's core value number 5. What Redwood does is really simple. We build 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage with a den and a patio attached townhome neighborhoods for rent. We're in 9 states, and we have 20,000 homes. You can see at that bottom on the left-hand corner, and we've never sold one that we have built. Here's our footprint. You'll see that it's actually 11 states. We're actively building in only 9 at this point. Go ahead. At its core, Redwood is really just a management company. We grow through the development of different neighborhoods. You'll see some branding and some signage that Redwood has, and all of our signs say Redwood Apartment Neighborhoods. That's it. It doesn't say Redwood here or Redwood there or Redwood at the Views or anything. It's Redwood. No different. We are building a brand no differently than Hyatt and Hilton and Marriott. Same thing, same concept. Who are our residents? For the most part, empty nesters. Those who are no longer wanting to spend money on maintenance. They're looking for a specific lifestyle, and Redwood gives them that. One kind of neat thing that you can start to see in Chicagoland, because we have 7 neighborhoods here already, this would represent our 8th, is you can go on your phone, that map program, and you type in Redwood, and you'll start seeing Redwoods pop up all over the place, much like they do when you're in Columbus or in parts of Michigan or parts of Indiana, where we have a fair amount of Redwood neighborhoods. And that branding kind of takes over. In that, most people in those markets, they don't say, I want a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, single-story townhome neighborhood for rent. I want a Redwood. So that's what we're working on. So branding and defense of that brand and making sure that we do things the right way is paramount to our success, short-term and long-term. Go ahead. So how do we find our residents? Similar ways to other management companies, we use extensive background checks. Most folks that live in a Redwood neighborhood, or some folks that live in a Redwood neighborhood, could actually buy a home or could live in a home. Our background checks are much more rigorous than any HOA or any for-sale product. No sex offenders, no criminals whatsoever. Next. So here's a little bit about some of our maintenance standards. You can see that we maintain our product, we maintain our projects, again, because we intend to hold on to them forever. Go ahead. Here's an image that we use to demonstrate that we do reinvest into our project. It's not just about the current maintenance, but it's also about long-term upkeep. Here's a project that we built in 2006, 2017. It won an award. You can see that there's no buckling on the siding, no fading, newer roofs, replaced. Concrete is sitting in there. We also upgraded, in this particular home, we upgraded the flooring and the countertops. We don't have to do that, but we did it to get to our newest, closest standards. So here's some stats I want to go through. In our 20,000 unit portfolio, our average age is about 52. 70% are empty nesters. Most relocate from a 3-mile radius. There's 1.6 cars, or 1.6 residents per home, 1.5 cars per home, and then only 14 minors per 100 homes, not all of which are school-aged children. Our rents equal home payments, total mortgage payment, and that also includes P&I, so principal and interest, taxes and insurance, as well as maintenance of a home in the neighborhood of between $300,000 and $400,000. We have a slide that goes into that a little bit more in detail. Approximately 75% of the annual operating expenditures on the management side of Redwood are paid to local vendors, suppliers, and labor. Approximately 40% of our construction budget is paid to local labor. Nearly 3.5% of the original residents who rented in a Redwood home that is 10 years old or older are the original inhabitants. So Redwood's been their home forever. All of our roadways, all of our drive aisles, like Ross was saying, are all private. It's all concrete. Every hard surface in there is concrete, built to last. 12-mile-an-hour posted speed limits with no parking, and that's super important. That no parking and that 12-mile-an-hour posted speed limit helps reduce crime not only within Redwood but around there, because now people can see who's there. It's a great deterrent, and it also is a great way to create that image and that sense of security. Here's that slide. Oh boy, I could have made that smaller. Here's that slide that compares our rents. We're anticipating roughly around $2,600. I can't read. Is that 50? I think that's 50. I think that. Thank you very much. And what that equates to is somewhere between a $400,000 and $500,000 or $400,000 and $300,000 home. And again, we're comparing ourselves to a 3-mile radius because that's where we think some of our residents will come from. And in this particular instance, we think that there's going to be roughly around 2,800 folks that may or may not want to live in Redwood. They do come. They really do. There'll be people who will say in meetings like this all the time to me, no one's going to pay that, no one's going to live there, and there's somebody in this room that will. It's just the history of Redwood. We have so much data on that. Here's a little bit of data with respect to our long-term management. We have never been below 90% in the last almost 20 years. And the growth rate that you see at the top, that is our revenue growth year over year on a same-store basis. So we're a solid operating company. I'm just going to cover this super fast and just hit the middle part of that where it says taxes per home. In general, in Chicagoland, Redwood residents generate in their local market anywhere between, in this particular instance, $48,000 to $51,000 of disposable income. So that's income, their disposable income as residents, now that they not saddled with all those homeowners expenses, and that circulates back through the economy a couple times before it leaves. Here's just some imagery and some stats about Redwood. We're zero-grade entrances, so there's no steps, whether it's through the front door, the back door, or through the garage. We use lever door handles. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second, in another slide. But sorry, thank you. We use stone accents. We use shake detail, clapper detail on our exteriors. And again, we're building this so that it lasts a long time, which we know based on our history that what we're doing today still matters. This is some of our imagery on the interiors: vaulted ceilings, high volume ceilings in bedrooms, luxury vinyl plank flooring, granite countertops, base panel doors, high quality finishes. But the one thing that I like to point out that you may remember from my last presentation is the image right on the right-hand side. You look out that window, that's really the differentiation between Redwood and traditional garden-style apartments. You don't get that image. You know, a lot of times you're just getting at a sea of parking, but this looks and feels like a home. These are our units. Forest Wood is our dominant unit. Haydenwood is a unit that's just a reverse loaded one. You'll see some of that imagery there right below that one. Forest Wood is the smallest home that we have. Cape Wood is the largest, so our units, again, range between just under 1,300 square feet to just over 1,600 square feet. And again, they are all 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage with a den and a patio. Same thing, that's all we do. Go ahead. Thank you. Here's to give you a little sense of our product line. These particular products aren't to demonstrate that these will be exactly what we will use. If anything, the pandemic has taught us is to not stipulate that to anyone. This is really, you can go visit those websites to get a sense of the stats behind those products. But again, stone, siding, shake, and then an architectural roof product. So this is our original preliminary site plan. I think I had this on here at 200 just to kind of get a sense to show that, we worked through with staff to reduce that down to 177. And then next one. Here the extent of the public road that we're building. The blue part is the public road. The green is that upgraded utilities. And then here's the original stats that we have. It was 180. Now we're 177. This is total plantings. This is our preliminary specs on landscaping. Total plantings of 610. And then here's some imagery. This is our Haydenwood. Again, that sign, that branding that we talked about. You can see the coursework of the stonework along the sides. All the fronts have this, and then any high traffic side will have that. We're good? And that's it. That's the end. Nope, you don't have to go back there. It's relevant, but if you have questions, we can cover that part.
We'll go ahead and open it up for questions, comments by City Council at this time. Any questions? Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions. I'm for this. I think it's in the right location. I think you're doing a good job. One of my concerns is siding. Is that you use that on other developments?
We do.
What's the longest?
Oh, our first project is early 2000s, and we've been pretty much using the same standard, not the same siding and not the same cut. Sometimes there was like a Dutch lap, and then we're just using a standard lap siding. So the look of it would be a little bit different, but in terms of grade and thickness, our standards have only gotten better as we've gone through.
And what's it made out of?
It's vinyl. It's a vinyl product, yes.
It's a vinyl product.
It's a thick-through vinyl product.
Okay. All right. Let's see, what else? Is there any kind of a any kind of a homeowners association connected with these?
No, sir.
So their rent pays for everything?
Redwood, it is typically one. I think in this one we would do two. It's either 1 to 2 parcels. So Redwood would own and manage all of it. So there would not be an HOA that would have anything to do with any maintenance. It would all be Redwood.
Okay. So if I'm right, you bought up a whole lot of property out there, right?
We're under contract.
You're under contract. How many acres besides this?
I think it's 116, 116, right? I don't know why that number's coming to mind. Over 100.
Over 100?
Yeah, over 100.
Good.
Yeah. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, I believe it was 127 with the full.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Now, you're aware that a gravel pit came before the city?
We are.
About a year ago?
We are.
Year and a half ago? and we voted it down. And I don't know what their plans are, what the rumor is, they might go to the county. I just want to get your feedback, because one of your entrances is going to be right where the proposed trucks will be coming in and out.
It is. We were going to come in with our own entrance. That property to the north already had a application in and got right to the end of where they would just post a bond and finish their permit work. We asked that owner to stop, and so that we could align those, because otherwise we don't think that we would get a full access that close together. And without that full access for Redwood there, because we will not get a full access off of Chapel Hill, we're told, that we have no choice, that we wouldn't be interested in the property in any way, shape, or form with two right-in, right-outs. It just wouldn't work for us. So we need that full access there.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Santee?
With the 177 units, is that going to be in phases, or how do you guys how do you build up?
Yeah, that's a great question. It usually be 2 phases.
Yeah,
Okay.
proposed in phases.
Proposed at 2 phases.
Do you start from the front to the back, or do you go back front? How does that work?
So we start probably out on Chapel Hill,
Okay.
and to show that nice frontage there, and then grow it to the front. The front part, the visible parts, would be part of that first phase, most likely. We haven't cut that up quite yet, but to the average person, you wouldn't notice our 2 phases.
Okay.
We would just keep building, and again, those rents that we quoted, those are rents during construction. We typically will come in, ask for an occupancy permit, the first few buildings that are going, and then we rent them.
And do each one of these units have their own individual addresses?
They don't have individual addresses.
Most often, yes.
Yeah, for this.
For this project, yes.
They do.
Yes.
And you brought up where all your units are 2 and 2, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, with a den. Does that den come with a closet?
No, it does not.
It does not.
Does not. We do it purposefully that way. It's a bonus space.
Okay.
People don't use that third bedroom anyhow.
No, I understand.
Often.
Closet, then it easily becomes a bedroom. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Let me go ahead.
Yeah. Basically, you talk about vinyl siding, and are you aware of our codes as far as that zoning, the type of material that needs to be used?
I'm going to let Russ.
Right, so we've worked through this. This is Redwood's product. This is a PUD, so it whatever you approve is what is required of them. So if you even though there's a standard RM1 zoning district, that's basically for density, but whatever you approve with the PUD is what they will do moving forward.
I understand that, but I also understand the fact that this was created years back for multifamily like this. As far as a standard, as far as masonry, and according to our ordinances, even Hardy Board does not meet that criteria. Masonry is brick and stone, and it doesn't even include concrete according to building standards. So I would say that we would need to see that in place, because I think that makes a huge difference in the looks of the quality of a development, especially when you're talking about a development that has, about 7 units across attached together. And with vinyl siding, I'll be honest with you, I was out yesterday as well as today over in Crystal Lake and looked at your Redwood, and you pass the apartments, and the first thing you see is a barracks. That's what it looks like from the back. It's flat. There's just no architecture whatsoever, and that concerns me. You talk about you have patio doors on the back of these units, and what I saw back there, still a place to put a patio. Some of them drop off right as you go out the door, and and then some of them the setbacks aren't like our normal subdivisions where we have 30-foot setbacks. I know with townhouses, we gave a variance years back, I believe to 25 feet. But I don't know, I mean, what are your setbacks over there in Crystal Lake? 20 feet, or some of them a lot less? I mean, there was one street I went down, looking at all the garages on both sides. I mean, it almost looked like an old city, alley, and that concerns me. You know, aesthetic looks a lot, I think, on a development, and it should for you as well. I mean, you're attracting, residents to come there, you know, they want more than just, you know, a place where they can just put their head down, you know, on a boat. You know, they want something they can be proud of as far as living in, whether they own it or whether they're renting it, you know, when they have visitors or whatever. As well as the standards of the city. I don't want to start giving up standards of what the city normally requires and start lowering our standards for any kind of development, and that's how I feel about this. And you know how I've always felt as far as rentals as well.
Any other questions? Alderwoman Miller?
Thank you. Thank you for coming back. As someone who's very interested in the real estate industry, because that's who I am, I followed your Volo project. I was out there quite frequently, and I was very pleased at your progression out there. And what I took from that probably the most is as fast as you got those buildings done, there were moving trucks in the driveways. There was a demand that I was surprised at, yet pleased to know that potentially that same development was coming here. So I felt that they were very pleasing to the eye. Again, people are coming down your drive paths, which I love that you call them drive paths, not roads. So they're seeing detail in the front. They're seeing, you know, the multiple pieces of your proposed exterior. There's not a lot of activity in the back, but again, you have patios, you have indentations, you have, you know, you end cap it with your larger unit, so there is some difference there. I was very pleased. I did tour them, so of course, you know, I had to see the product, and I like it. So thank you for coming to McHenry, or hoping to come to McHenry with 177 units. I think it'll be a good addition to our inventory. Thank you.
Alderwoman Bassi?
Hi, thank you. I have a couple of questions, and my first one, you already answered the fact that at no time will this ever be an owned property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I do want to thank, Ross, you gave me an average of 2,550, and yours is a little bit higher. So we're going to work with the numbers that I was given this afternoon, if that's okay. So I did some math. That's my favorite thing to do. And at $2,550 a month rent, you're coming up with a yearly rent of $30,600. Does that sound about correct to you?
It does.
And then if you live there 5 years and you had 10 years, you're looking at $153,000 over the course of 5 years in just pure rent. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay, great. Thank you. So McHenry definitely needs more single-family affordable homes. And I think a rental community does not solve this problem, so I'm not in support of another rental project. If you guys would do ownership at all, I would be a little more agreeable to it. But thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Alderman Santi?
In Crystal Lake, how long have you been there?
We're still in the process of building.
Okay.
So we just started doing some leasing this summer.
I'm sorry, doing?
We just started leasing a few units this summer in Crystal Lake.
So how many of those units are completely built today?
Phase one is almost completed, 100 and,
say phase one, the construction is, it's almost done. Like,
Okay.
you know, we just started leasing this summer.
And the amount of leases that you have on those units today are, or signed contracts or whatever?
I'd have to go back and look, but
No idea.
I just met with the manager, and they told me, and I don't recall the number specifically, but I can tell you that it was quite robust, and they're doing a better job than we thought, than budgeted. I know they're ahead of budget.
And the same thing with Volo. How long has Volo been?
Everything in Chicago has been leasing up really well.
Okay, and,
really
and
well.
Volo is completed, correct? I've driven there, but, you know,
If there's a couple punch list items, things here and there, but I think most of the units in phase one are delivered, and we have phase.
are completed and they have people in them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And how many units are in Volo?
150.
I think 143.
143.
Sorry, right around that ballpark.
140. No, sorry, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Okay. Open up for public comment. Anyone from the public that would like to make a public comment regarding this item? All right, see none? Yeah. So, I'd like to go down the line and ask each person individually, each council member, if you have any other, certain questions. Also, if you do plan on voting no on any of these items, item B1 is a supermajority. I vote on that as well. So it'd be 6 out of 8 in order for it to pass. 5 out of 8 for the simple majority. I would vote on that on B2, and then B3 is just council only, simple majority. So if you have any questions, this is the time to do it. If you do plan on voting no, I would ask that you would state the reason of voting no, so that way it's only fair to the developers so they understand why you're voting no. So, Alderman Sandy, anything else you want to add?
No, they've answered my questions. I just looking at this and then covering my bases, I know we have newer elected officials that were not in attendance in 23, but I just recall that, and I listened a lot that night because I had not seen this development before, and I was interested, but I was, definitely had some questions and listened to a lot of what my fellow elected officials had mentioned, and we seemed to have a very positive response at that point, and I know that was about, a year and a half ago or something, and it takes time to understanding. When I talked to Ross this afternoon, we talked about ownership over there and who are they dealing with and how is that going, and I know that was definitely a windy road for your company. No, I'm comfortable. I look forward to moving forward with this. Thank you.
Alderman.
One thing I want to mention is the fact that, if you go back 30 years ago, Henry had a lot of opportunities as far as expansions in all directions. We're pretty landlocked from all directions at this time, so we've only got a certain amount of properties that are available to come into the city, and we've got to be very frugal as far as what we accept. I mean, this has always been a family-oriented type community, and it seems like the only thing we've built are apartments and rental units in the last several years, and I think we need to be very careful as far as what we accept. To say that these will never be sold individually, can't say that. You won't be around forever. Neither will I. I can recall in Chicago many years ago where there was a fellow that owned an apartment complex very well, kept it up very well, and he gave it to his son as a trust so that his son would have something to fall on when he was gone. And when he was gone, the first thing the son did was to sell it as condos and break it up. And to me, I look at this and I wonder if 20 years down the road or 25 years down the road, whatever it is, this could happen here, and then what kind of headaches would the city have, you know? You're looking at a community that doesn't have, proper streets as far as city-type streets. We do have a townhouse, development, Chesapeake Hills that, is somewhat this type of a development, except, they're actual townhouses, or what I call townhouses, and that's two-story buildings, brick buildings, by the way. And first time that they needed the roads fixed, the first thing they wanted to do was have the city take over the streets, that the private roads were, too expensive for them, so they wanted the city to take them over. So, there's a lot of things that we've got to look at, not just what's now, what's in the future, and what's best for the city. And to me, more rental is not the way to go, and that's where I feel.
I pretty much said, everything I wanted to. My only concern was the siding, and you addressed that, but Russ, keep on it.
Yeah, no, I will, and you know, the two previous developments that we did approve, or that the council approved, you know, there was a reduced amount of brick on those as well, or you actually make one of them put more on. But I mean, it's, you know, building products have come along, and I'm not lobbying for this, but building products have come a long way since, you know, the 1980s when these restrictions were put on. And again, this is one of the reasons why we're doing a UDO this year, is to fix these things, right? So maintenance with the vinyl sidings that they have today, they're a lot thicker, they're a lot more durable than they were when these ordinances were made. So that's my professional opinion on that. I would like to see that those requirements get reduced in our UDO, because it is awfully expensive to build these days. And when you say you got to put 75% brick on a building, you're never going to get anybody in here to build. So that's just my, and this has a good mix, right? You've got the shake and the gables, you've got the siding, and then you've got the brick.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, you know, we were comfortable as staff with bringing it forward.
Thank you.
I think I've asked all my questions and said everything I need to say, so I'm not comfortable bringing in another rental project when we really do need, starter homes. So I will not be in support of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Davis?
Yeah, I don't have any questions. Like, most of the questions I had were asked already. I'm in favor of it. I don't see a problem with the rentals. I know right now the market is, that's where it's going. Again, things could change on the road, but if you look at some of the other rental places around that have been, over the years, they're well filled, and when they become vacant, they fill up very quickly, and there is a need for this.
Thank you. Alderman Cook?
All the questions that I had, thought of, were all answered by you and all, and, council members. I don't see no drawback. I like it.
Thank you. Alderman Miller?
Thank you. I'm in favor of all three of the proposals. I think this is where the market is moving. I think your existing communities demonstrate that, as do the other communities we've approved. People want to rent, and as long as we have an investor who's willing to put up a decent product and support it over the long haul, I'm in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Ross, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention too, you know, Redwood is only buying the portion that they're developing on. So we're annexing 122 acres in, and they're only building on, Anthony, do you remember what the 27 acres. 27 acres. So
27.4.
So their development is only 27.4 acres. The Redwood will not own the property surrounding this. They only will own their 27 acres. So we've got a commercial spot up on 120 that will be for sale by the owner, and then you've got an additional 80 to 100 acres that we'll have available for hopefully, single-family home type. You know, we've done some internal, engineering and playing around with a road that routes through around the Redwood subdivision, and ties into where the school district is. So, you know, there's future development on this site as well. Thank you.
Paul, anything you want to add?
No, not at this time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion for B1, ordinance authorizing the execution of annexation agreement for a 122.477 acre property located at the southeast corner of Chapel Hill Road and Illinois State Route 120 in McHenry County, Illinois. I'm looking for a motion. Alderman Santee?
I will make the motion on, agenda item 7B, Redwood, Development Agreement as presented.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Miller?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion on this item by City Council? Alderman Santee?
I just want to remember that it's my understanding that
I will vote on this.
the mayor has to, okay, thank you.
Any other questions by council? Open up for public comment. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santi,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
No.
Alderman McClatchy,
Yes.
Alderwoman Bassey,
No.
Alderman Davis,
Yes.
Alderman Cook,
Yes.
Mayor Jett.
Yes. That item has passed. B2, ordinance annexing approximately 122.477 acres, commonly known as 2011 West Illinois Route 120 in McHenry County, Illinois. Looking for a motion to approve. Alderman Miller?
I'll make the motion to approve the ordinance annexing approximately 122.477 acres, commonly known as 2011 West Illinois 120, McHenry County, Illinois.
Thank you. Second, Alderman Cook?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Discussion on this item by City Council? See none. Public comment regarding this item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Cook,
Yes.
Alderman Santi,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
No.
Alderman McClatchy,
Yes.
Alderwoman Bassey,
No.
Alderman Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Jett.
Yes, that item has passed. B3, ordinance granting a preliminary plat of subdivision, zoning map amendment, and preliminary plan approval for the conditional use permit for the Redwood Planned Unit Development located at southeast corner of Chapel Hill Road and Illinois Route 120 in the city of McHenry, McHenry County, Illinois. Looking for a motion to approve. Alderman McClatchy?
Thank you. I'll make that motion to approve, B3, ordinance granting, plat of subdivision.
Thank you. Second. Alderman Davis?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on this item by City Council? Any public comment regarding this item? Trish, I do not vote on this one, but please call the roll.
Thank you. Alderman McClatchy,
Yes.
Alderman
Yes.
Alderman Davis,
Yes.
Alderman Santi,
Yes.
Alderman Glad,
No.
Alderwoman Bassey,
No.
Alderman Cook,
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller.
Yes.
That item has been approved as well. Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you. You two have a good evening. All right, next item on the agenda is 7C, 3318 Pearl Street use variance. I'm looking for a motion to pass an ordinance granting a use variance to allow a contractor's office at the property located at 3318 Pearl Street. Before I get that motion, Director Palaraki, you want to go ahead and present this?
Sure, thank you. The applicant, Mr. Johnson, is requesting approval of a use variance to operate a contractor's office at 3318 Pearl Street. They're not permitted in the C4 district, therefore the use variance is required. The applicant is an electrical contractor, desires to construct offices in the rear garage unit of the 3318 Pearl Street building, which was is the bike shop, if you're familiar with the old Napa building. Avant Cycles currently occupies the front half of the building, and they don't need the storage space that the bike shop used. So Matt is requesting this use variance, does plan on upgrading the bathrooms and some other things within the space. So he is here this evening if there are any questions by council.
Thank you. Alderman McClatchy?
Thank you. I've got two questions for him if he's here.
If you could hit the center button and state your name and address for public record, please.
Matt Johnson, 612 Country Club Drive, McHenry.
Matt, welcome to the Third Ward. Two questions. How many trucks are you gonna have parked inside there?
Probably two at the most. If
So-
if they're even in there full time, they probably won't be in there full time.
So someone goes in to use a truck, where are they gonna park their car?
Inside the building.
Okay,
That's why we're trying to we don't want any parking outside, none of that stuff.
okay. That's all I have. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? Alderman Santee?
I want Alderman McClatchy's assistance on this. Did we meet you once, at a, Thursday night music event? Did you normally sit out there by the garage?
Yeah.
Do you, didn't we?
There was someone else that was
Maybe you had somebody, I was just, 'cause it was very, I mean, I met, I believe, husband and wife, and, you know, there, and then a bunch of friends, and you guys were sitting out enjoying the music. You guys had your own nice little suite over there, so,
Right.
you know, we maybe want to stop in and say hello next year.
Sure.
But, no, congratulations, and it's not my ward, but I look forward to you being in Ward 3. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none. All right, sir, you can have a seat. Thank you very much. At this time, looking for a motion to approve 7C as presented. Alderman McClatchy?
I will gladly make that motion.
Thank you. Second, Alderman Santee?
I'll second it.
All right. Once again, any questions by council? Any public comment regarding this item? See none, clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderwoman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Davis?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Thank you. That item has passed. 7D. Congratulations. Welcome to Ward 3. I'm sure you heard that a couple times, but if you need anything, give us a shout and we'll help you in any way we can. So thank you. Next item on the agenda is 7D, is Oakwood Drive Bridge reconstruction. Before I ask for a motion, we'll go ahead and have Russ Adams present the item, but I will be asking for a motion to initiate a combination proceedings for the purpose of obtaining 0.118 acres of right-of-way and .069 acres of temporary easement for the Oakwood Drive Bridge project. Russ?
Thank you, Mayor. So back in January of 2020, the city entered into an agreement with IDOT and Baxter and Woodman to redesign and reconstruct the Oakwood Drive Bridge. Part of that consisted of replacing the over 50-year-old mill arch design with a box culvert style bridge. Currently there is a water main that goes beneath the Oakwood Drive Bridge. That water main will have to be relocated beyond the perimeter of this new box culvert style bridge. So that's the primary reason for needing to gain the excess right-of-way or extra right-of-way, is to relocate the water main to the west side of the Oakwood Drive Bridge. Staff had retained a negotiator to try to, reach a deal with the property owner. Deal was reached. The issue is the property is held in a series of trusts, and several individuals involved in these trusts have been non-responsive to efforts to get the necessary signatures for a traditional acquisition of the property. At this point, the beneficiary of the trust has requested that the city move forward with condemnation on this .118 acres, just to expedite the process. This is scheduled to be constructed this upcoming fiscal year. So we're getting to a point where if we have, significant delays in acquiring the property, the project may not move forward, and it is an STP grant-funded project where we have an 80-20, funding match for this project.
All right. Thank you, Russ. Appreciate it. At this time, I'm looking for a motion to approve 7D as presented. Alderman Cook?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Miller?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion by City Council? Alderman Glad?
Yeah, I just want to talk about the fact that, although I'm in support of this bridge reconstruction, I think it's a piecemeal type situation, and I don't like piecemeal. And that's the fact that I've talked on quite a few occasions as far as Boone Creek and the fact that it's been neglected for the last 30-some-odd years that I've seen, and I just think that we really need to do a study on the creek as a whole. And when I say Boone Creek, that includes the drainage way that runs through Lakeland Park, because that is also part of Boone Creek. And we need a drainage study so that when these type of issues come up, we know how it fits in the big picture. We know that we don't have the financial where to spend on fixing up Boone Creek totally all at once. It might be something that might take 30 or 40 or 50 years, but every time we do a piece of Boone Creek, and this is part of the Boone Creek section, we should know how it's going to fit into the overall product at the finished end, so that we don't wind up, in this case I think they've sized it fairly well, but in other projects, there may be something that we do that just doesn't quite fit, and then it has to be redone again down the road. So I think we just need to be careful when we do these type of projects, that we know what the impact, the overall impact would be at the end, and that we really need to look at a broader view of every project that we have come before us.
Okay.
And as far as the condemnation, I do know, did research on this many years ago as far as the developer that bought it. I think they paid $80,000 for, I don't remember how many acres, and what seemed to be a good deal at that time wound up with a lot of drainage problems in marshy areas and soils that just would not substantiate development. And that company has had that thing, I think, for the last 40-some-odd years, and I can see why it's probably sitting on the books as a tax write-off. I don't know, but if we can't have a development like that, or a developer like that owns that property, that just hold up progress, and that's why I would be in favor of the condemnation.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Alderman Bassey?
I just want to say, to be consistent with most of my comments and condemnation, even a friendly one, I cannot support it. It seems like this is a family issue. If we could wait, I know you're trying, and you're doing working with them, but I would rather have them completely on board than starting any condemnation. Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Open up for public comment. Anyone from the public would like to make a public comment on the item? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Davis?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bassey?
No.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda is 7 is an ordinance amending 15-minute parking at 59 North Green Street. I am looking for a motion to pass an ordinance amending section 7-4-25, 15-minute parking, 8 o'clock a.m. until 6 o'clock p.m. on Monday through Saturday of the McHenry City Code. We had gotten a call, obviously it's in there as well, that they, a couple of the business owners don't use these parking spots. However, across the street, Jexel's in the coffee shop could benefit from having these 2 spots, so we're looking to relocate 2 of those over to the other side of the street. So I'm looking for a motion to approve. Alderman McClatchy?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Santee?
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion on this item? Alderman Bassey?
So I want to make sure I heard this correctly. Did you just say you're going to relocate the 2 15 minutes to the other side of the street?
On the other side of Green Street, correct.
Okay, so we still need to have the 15 minutes, and I think it's a good idea, because then we can still have the turnover for additional parking. and we're not removing them. So I am in support of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments by council? Any public comment regarding this item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderwoman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Davis?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda is 7F, Aqua annexation. Looking for a motion to pass an ordinance annexing property commonly known as 2407 Lincoln Road in McHenry County, Illinois, with a zoning classification of RS3. At this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Director Palarecki.
Thank you, Mayor. So the city, was contacted by Aqua, for this address, out on Lincoln Road. They are installing, commonly known as 2407 Lincoln Road, by the way. They are upgrading their pump station and adding a iron filter, for the residents within the Eastwood Manor subdivision. While doing that, the system does require, there's a discharge water when it goes to the iron filter. They need a sewer main to discharge that into. Septic just doesn't work for them. So we are asking, again, this was a voluntary annexation. They petitioned to annex in so that they can hook into our sanitary sewer and pay a single rate fee, the normal resident fee for the discharge into that system. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Ross. Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. This question goes to our counselor. If we do this and say the water company gets sued, are we part of that because we're annexed to their pump?
You can always get sued for anything, but I
Yeah.
don't think that there would be any liability to the city.
Even though it's on our property?
It's on our property.
It's private, it's still private property, Alderman McClatchy. They're just coming into the city limits.
They're just being
It's their
annexed.
property, yeah.
Okay. Is there any way we can just give them an okay to use our sewer system, or?
So you can. That's not how they approached us, but if the city council prefers not to annex this property in, you can pass, let me find it, I have it pulled up here. Municipal sanitary sewer service may be made available to premises located outside of the city corporate limits at the discretion of the city council when approved by a 3/4 vote. The connection and capital development fees and charges for such service shall be 1.5 times the fees and charges established in this chapter for service within the corporate city limits. Further, the extension of the sewer main and service shall be at the sole cost, and that doesn't, so basically, if the city council decides tonight they don't want to annex this property in, I would need to bring back an ordinance at the next council meeting for the possibility of you guys voting on it at a 3/4 vote, for them to be able to hook up and then charge it 1.5 times the rate.
Okay.
Of course, their ask was to annex in, so.
And there would be no difference in liability if you annexed versus not, in terms of them using the water or sewer system.
Yeah, I was just coming at it as, they're part of the city now. Does the city be part of that lawsuit? Hopefully there's not one, but, okay.
Alderman Gleb?
Yeah, one of my main concerns more than anything else is they need, to hook up to our systems because they want to put in filters that they want to flush into our systems. And it just makes me wonder, they're going to be paying the rates, like anybody else as far as sewer rates, and yet how much more impact would they be making to our system, to our filters and such, into the sanitary system?
So we would be able to require them to sample what they're discharging, and then we do have surcharges associated with the sewer bills. So if they were in exceedance of any of the limits in our sewer use ordinance, we could certainly accommodate for that. My understanding with the treatment process they use, and they have a similar well house to this one in the McHenry Shores neighborhood, which is already tied into our sanitary sewer system, so we've got a little bit of experience with this. This is not the first, go around with this. I don't think we're gonna have any issues, but we can require them to, take samples and.
But I also understand that Aqua down in McHenry Shores services the residents of McHenry Shores, of the residents of the city of McHenry.
That's correct.
Here, they don't service the residents of the city of McHenry. They residents, that are outside the city that don't really want to come into the city. There's been discussions for many years as far as, Eastwood Manor, and they have no inkling to come into the city. And, there might be a property owner here or there that would like to be annexed in, but as a whole, they don't. So, again, that's just the only concern I have, more so than anything else, is if they come into the city, I want to make sure that they pay for whatever kind of impacts they're going to cause to our system. And how do we monitor that?
Well, again, we would require them to submit samples. The way these units operate, they're fairly consistent. So, we could have them submit samples for a year, and we would know what their typical discharge would look like. It's not like a manufacturing process that's subject to change. It's an iron removal filter, is my understanding, and it operates based on a certain set point. So it's when it reaches discharge, it's going to be a fairly uniform.
But how often do we monitor that then? Okay, we could monitor X amount of times for the first year, but then do we have a yearly time that we monitor those, or?
I believe in our sewer use ordinance, we can require them to submit samples on an annual basis.
You do?
And they'll be metered, so we'll know how much is being discharged. So it's really just a question of looking for any variation in what, the initial discharge was, if it's higher or lower. But again, they'll be billed based on a meter, so we'll know for surcharge purposes if in fact that's an issue.
So we'll be pretty well protected then.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Cook?
Is this kind of the same setup as McHenry Shores with theirs, with their discharge and everything else like that?
That's my understanding. I've not seen final plans for their new well house, but my understanding is it's iron filtration similar to what they've got in the Shores.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions by council? Comments? Ross?
I can verify that. Russell was kind of brought into the game late on this one. I'd met with the previous director of Public Works with Aqua many months back, and it is virtually exactly the same as McHenry Shores.
Can the cities handle the impact of the discharge? Is there going to be any problems with that or no?
I think we're talking about such a small volume of water being discharged that we're not even really going to notice it.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Open it up for public comment. Bob? You can come up now. Sorry. Yeah, I'm sure. Please state your name and address for public record.
My name is Bob Reitblatt. I live at 1413 Edgewood Lane, just up the road from the pump house. I apologize if I'm going to duplicate what you just talked about. I'm a little hearing impaired and I didn't hear your whole discussion. So if I'm duplicating, I apologize. I would like you to not approve this annexation for two big reasons. The first is, history has taught us a huge lesson that if we go back to the Lavash-o-Mama War 5,000 years ago and look at every war since, the Crusades, World War I, World War II, the Gulf War, they were all fought over one issue. Who would like to tell me what that issue is? Resources. And we're talking about the resources, in this case, of water. If the city takes zoning control of that property, the city effectively controls the water system to my subdivision and Settlers Hill. Now, I know you're going to tell me, and Russ already told me, we would never do that. But cities don't have a lifetime. We're all gonna die at some point. The city isn't. It's gonna go on forever. You wonderful people can promise me all day long you're never gonna take over, you're never gonna pass new zoning ordinances that effectively shuts down that pumping station, but the next people who take your place, they may do that. And to me, that's a risk for our resources. We have one source of water, and that is that pumping station. We can't dig our own wells. If we could, we would be doing it. But the county health ordinances don't allow us to put in our own wells anymore. So we're stuck. And if the council in the future decides that you want to take over our neighborhood, the easiest way is to shut off our water and say, annex to us or you have no water. Why should we take on that risk? Why do you want to take on that risk? My second issue is how it wasn't that long ago that we were dealing with the gravel pit annexation issue. The only reason Peace was allowed to come in and apply for annexation is because of what's known as a flagpole or balloon string annexation. 120-foot wide piece of property crossed over Chapel Hill, and he said, well, that's the connection, I can now annex. If you annex one property in our subdivision, you now have another opportunity to start eating away at our subdivision, and maybe we don't want to be annexed. So what's the advantage to the city of annexing one parcel in this subdivision? I can think of none. I can see a lot of downsides. There are extra liabilities. Thank you, Madam City Attorney. I couldn't hear what you said about whether there's more liability or not. Suddenly, the property's in your control. You have control of our subdivision. You have all the power. We have all the risk. You have no benefit. Why don't you just change your ordinance and allow, you already have the ability to hook up into the sewer system without annexing the property. Why do you want to overly complicate the issue? You can today, I suppose tonight or maybe next meeting, pass your variance and say, sure, we'll just connect in the discharge, and I just heard that it's a very small amount of water. It's not like it's going to tax your system one way or the other. It's not going to generate a lot of revenue for you one way or the other. So why give us the risk? Why complicate it? Just pass a simple service agreement, not an annexation agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions or give you more of my opinions if you're interested.
We're good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Oh, Sue, go ahead. Oh, Bob, can you please come up to the podium? Alderman Miller has a...
I'm happy to. Please.
Hi, Bob. Just a quick question. Has Aqua given you any notice what your increased rate may or may not be with this new iron filter that they're upgrading their system to?
No, unfortunately, Aqua is not necessarily communicative. And I will say that the majority of the people who spend more time dealing directly with Aqua happen to be over at Justin's at a funeral this evening. I only found out about this late this afternoon and said, yes, I'll go because everyone else is at the funeral. But in general, Aqua doesn't. I have my opinion of what I think should happen, and apparently that idea was not well received. I think that township should just take over the whole system by eminent domain and get them out of the picture, but that is a whole other argument. Really, there's no benefit. They got to deal with the iron. The cost, whatever, can't be that significant. And even if it's 1.5 times, I believe I heard you guys say, compared to the cost of everything else that we're paying for to upgrade, I think it's a negligible amount.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
You sure?
We're good. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, this time looking for a Ross, do you have another comment?
Well, I just address two things.
Sure, go ahead.
So Eastwood Manor is too large for, say, a forcible annexation. So there's no way that the city at this point could ever come in and say, hey, unless they change state statute, we can't go in and say, hey, we're going to annex this property in. The only way those residents are going to be annexed into the city of McHenry is if their septics fail along Lincoln Road. Then, of course, by ordinance, they would be required to to tap into our sanitary, mains. So, and then, even at that, they don't become wholly surrounded, so, because the outdoor theater, in this section over there that's in the county. So, I mean, annexing Eastwood Manor, I just don't see that ever happening. The second thing I wanted to note is that Aqua is not the only water source for Eastwood Manor. We have an agreement with Aqua where we have an interconnection behind the Thorntons at Chapel Hill and 120. If Aqua loses their ability to supply water to the residents of Eastwood Manor, we swing a valve open and the city of McHenry meters what goes into Eastwood Manor system, and then we charge Aqua for that. So there is a contingency and a backup plan to supply Eastwood Manor with water if their water system fails.
Thank you, Ross. At this time, looking for a motion to approve 7F as presented. Alderwoman Miller?
I will make that motion to approve 7F as presented to annex the property commonly known as 2407 Lincoln Road, which provides city sewer services to Aqua.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Ante?
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion by City Council? Alderman Glab?
Yeah. Number one, just so that it's quite clear to everybody, is the fact that it's not that we are aggressively looking to annex Aqua, that Aqua actually came to us asking for annexation. Do we not have a connection to somebody there now? Was that just sanitary sewer, or was it water from the south side of Eastwood Manor?
The south side of Lincoln Road, there are a couple, I'd have to go back and look at the maps, but yeah, it jogs in and out.
Right.
Like, we have annexed some residents, one or two of the residents on Lincoln Road because their septics failed.
No, not on, I'm talking behind the,
Thornton's.
commercial off of 120.
Yes, there are.
And we did not annex any of those properties, or force them to annex to hook up, correct?
The reason we did not is because, well, one, police service.
The road for one, yeah.
And, right, so we would take and annex an 80-foot wide lot.
Right.
And we'd be responsible for that road.
Right.
And then police service would be responsible for that. And so they'd have to, it was just, I think a lot of confusion would come into play there and may affect times of, right, Chief?
I think it was the roads more than anything
Right.
else, is the way it was sold to the council. And the thing I'm getting at is the fact that, we would have annexed those properties if we had ulterior motives to
Correct.
continue to gnaw away at that subdivision. So I don't really think that's an issue. Although he's right. The next council might decide something different. There's a lot of things the council could decide differently if it changes, so, I think we just need to move forward, as long as we are covered with, the expenses, that them hooking up. I think we should be fine. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy?
No.
Alderwoman Massey?
Yes.
And I vote on this, sorry.
Alderman Davis?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Maybe that.
Yes, sorry. All right. All right, that is passed. Thank you, Bob, for next item on the agenda is 7G, Veterans Park Playground Equipment. Looking for a motion to approve a proposal from Team Real for the replacement of playground equipment at Veterans Memorial Park in the amount of $419,999, and to approve an ordinance authorizing a budget amendment to the Developer Donation Fund for an expenditure in the amount of $299,999. Director Hobson, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, I know we're going to get a little bit further into the Parks Master Plan and our future of our parks coming up here shortly, but this is an exciting opportunity that I'm very thankful for the Rise Up Foundation and their contributions. As we looked at what our playground system encompasses right now, one of the things that we don't have is a truly inclusive and accessible park. While all of our parks meet the ADA standard and the most that we have in our parks meet the ADA standard, having a park that has the safety surface on it, as well as a number of inclusive elements that really lends to all children of ages and abilities. It was an exciting opportunity. And in this location with the number of other amenities that are in that park, including parking, sidewalks, and washrooms, it really became the ideal candidate. It is nearing the end of its lifetime. So 2027 would be the scheduled replacement for that park. And so the opportunity here to put this type of playground into our system was very exciting. So we did solicit two different layouts. Playground equipment is purchased through a program called Sourcewell, which is already bid by the state of Illinois, meets all bidding requirements. So you don't really have a true where you put specs together and put it out to bid. You can have two different designs and see which one you like more, giving them a budget of here's where we think this playground is going to land. And once we did that, we selected the Team Real project, and that's what's before you for consideration.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
At this time, I'm looking for a motion to approve 7G as presented. Alderman Santee?
I will make the motion to approve the Veterans Park Playground equipment as presented, 7G.
Thank you. Second, Alderman Cook?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Discussion of City Council? Alderman Glab?
Yeah, I mean, looking at a developer donation amendment on expenditures at $300,000, the fact that we're waiting for $300,000 that was promised to us from the RISE Foundation.
That check has been given to Bill Hobson.
I'm sorry?
That check
We
has
have
been
that
given to
check.
Bill Hobson.
Check is here.
We have the money in our hands.
We have it.
check.
So then why do we need to do the budget amendment?
We have to do a budget amendment because the
We gotta
expense.
do the budget amendment anyway.
Yeah,
Okay.
the expense is
Okay,
going
so-
through. Yep.
Basically, what it says in here is not exactly,
I just gave him the check today,
okay.
this
All right.
morning.
So it's been changed a little bit. All right, then that, I have no problems with it. Thank you.
Papering it up.
And
Yeah.
thank whoever is in RISE.
Yeah.
Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Good job, Mayor, as always. I got a question. What do we do with the old equipment? Can we donate to like a town that's in need or something?
If someone was interested in it and wanted it, I would check with Team Real to see if it meets standards. I would be leery of giving something away that's about to expire, but I would let the industry standard of Team Real, and that's their job, that could dictate that. However, again, with two-year life remaining for us to even reuse it in someplace else or donate it, I'm very skeptical of that.
Where does that go? Does it go to a playground graveyard or something?
I'm sure some of those materials they probably strip down and maybe recycle if possible. Otherwise, it's probably in a landfill or a metal recycler is probably the most likely candidate. By the time you take the paint off or a rubberized surface off, it's all metal underneath that. So a metal recycling facility is the most logical.
Any other Alderman Bassi?
Carolyn, I just want to confirm, we're going to do the budget amendment, pull the $300,000 out of the developers. You're going to cash the check and put it back.
Correct.
That's all I needed to know. Thank you.
So the net is zero. Perfect, thank you.
Alderman Cook?
Make $1.
You made $1.
So when does this playground get started? What, soon in springtime, or?
It'll be ready to go for next summer.
Okay.
It usually, like playgrounds, our experience has been, we're probably
Yeah.
looking at 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So ordering it now, the installation, we're not changing the actual curbing of the playground. We'll take the mulch out, we'll take the playground equipment out. We'll be ready for summer, and then May timeframe.
Excellent.
Alderman Miller?
I just wanted to thank Director Hobson for his one-on-one time about this playground. I had no idea that playgrounds were based on styrofoam. So I thought that was actually very interesting. And Mr. Sweeney, if you're watching or when you watch, thank you for being my victim and jumping on the styrofoam so I could demonstrate to myself that it would not break. I think it's going to be a nice addition to our Veterans Park. And I love the red, white, and blue AstroTurf or whatever you're calling that product that's going in. I think it's going to be visually stunning. So thank you for the one-on-one time, and thank you for your thoughts.
So just to add to that, so everybody has the same information, when you put the safety grass, it's like AstroTurf, it's like the football fields where it's actually grass, without the black rubber pellets everywhere. So as parents, we don't have to deal with that in our houses and cars and everything. But instead of the rubberized safety surface, it actually is a short grass, where we visited 3 or 4 of those locations, as well as talked to the Northern Illinois Special Recreation. This is a new trend that provides a 10-year warranty. So sometimes other park districts that we've run into and parks departments have run into this, the rubberized safety surface that unfortunately gets vandalized and burned is a common issue. With this particular product, it is grass, and underneath that grass is a 3/4 inch felt pad, and underneath that felt pad is probably a 2.5 inch styrofoam. So your fall protection is provided in all those layers. And so yes, we did find somebody to stand on the styrofoam and say
Not stand, jump.
Jump.
Yeah. So it's kind of like an Omaha steak delivery styrofoam box with a 3/4 inch awesome felt pad with drainage, and then you have your AstroTurf. So it's completely awesome the way that system goes together, and it will resolve splinters, drainage, and just bad knees on that mulch. So thank you.
Any other questions, comments by council? See none. Anyone from the public that would like to make a public comment? See none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bassey?
Yes.
Alderman Davis?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, and thank you to Rise Up.
Thanks, Bill. Next item on the agenda is a discussion item. It's about a 5-minute presentation. No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. Totally kidding. So it's a Parks Master Plan. Director Hobson, go ahead.
I am going to turn this over pretty quickly to Bridget from Hitchcock Design. We have met Bridget before. She did an excellent job last time she was here before us. However, we did, just as some background, we started our Parks and Recreation Master Plan in May of 2023. Prior to that, we've done 2 different studies. In 2016, we did a community needs assessment, which we hired a firm, went out, and they polled our public and said, here's what we think you want, but we didn't take it that next step beyond putting that actual master plan together. So our last official full master plan that we had done was 2006, and it was essentially valid from 2007 to 2012. Now, while it technically expired in 2012, much of those things that we had seen within that plan were re-verified, validated when we did the 2016 study with things that people are still looking for. However, that brought us to the Hitchcock Design, and we really need to have a valid master plan in place. And we're excited with all the input that we've received up to this point to be able to make some presentations, especially that culmination, verify that, and then take us to the next step of actually implementing the plan. So I'll turn it over to you and jump in wherever you need.
All right, thanks everybody. And while I cannot promise you 5 minutes, our intent today is to go through this as quickly or as slowly as you wish. I believe everyone received our lovely light reading of 16 pages of information, and we also have a brief slideshow as well to kind of guide us through some of the key topics. At any point, this is our opportunity to stop, dive in, answer any questions, or get a little bit deeper into any information. If something is making sense or generally heading in the right direction, we can go as fast or slow as we want to on any or all of those topics. So with that, thank you, Suzanne, for driving for me, and we'll go right through. So as Bill alluded to, throughout our process, on the next slide, we have several phases. When I last spoke to you all, we were wrapping up the Analyze and Connect phase, in which we looked at all of the park and open space and the rec center citywide on a comprehensive scale to understand what is available, what the status of it is, and overall condition. Concurrent to that, we did have our Connect phase, in which we went out to the community, received public input from an online survey, a in-person community meeting, a workshop with the staff, and a workshop with the council at that time as well to start determining what perception of needs, what's working, what isn't working was at that time. That leads us into phase 3, the envision phase, which is where we are really wrapping up today with this memo in front of you with all of these various envisioned needs and strategies. So if we go to the next phase, next slide please. Oh, we have a lot of filler slides. See, it goes by fast. So just to reiterate, the purpose of this memo and our discussion here tonight is to identify potential needs and strategies for the next 5 years. Obviously, we have a lot of ideas here, so some of these might extend beyond 5 years. These are all based on the Analyze and Connect phase results, as well as some industry expertise from ourselves, from Bill and his staff as well. These are preliminary, they're pending interest and feasibility. We're here tonight to confirm that these are things that you agree are appropriate to consider needs and strategies to accomplish them, not necessarily to prioritize them yet, and we know that not everything included in this is mutually exclusive. We find the best way to present and narrow down this information is to capture as much as we possibly can in advance. It's just much easier to potentially rule things out or come up with potentially divergent strategies that may accomplish a single need, depending on how the future shakes out. So with that, we'll jump right in to what we've identified as need number 1. For each of these slides, if you'll continue to the next one, we've given you a very brief review of the background information since it has been a while since we've been before you last. Basically, what this comes down to is the Merkel Aquatic Center is fairly small, outdated, and has a few safety concerns. There are some regular annual operating losses and water losses, as well as some major upkeep in the near future of the facility. We heard from, I believe, every level of the Connect Phase Forum that there is interest in a new facility and some updates for that amenity. We know that there is a potential indoor and or outdoor component within the McHenry Rec Center when that facility was planned. That was a consideration as a potential future idea that we can still revisit. And we also just want to keep in mind that this is a big item. We're talking about 5 years here. We'll talk a little bit about how this might come about, but we do understand as well that there is a history with that 2018 referendum, which did not go through, so we want to be cognizant of where this issue has landed in the past as well. So as we move into our next slide, you'll note that while some of these items down the line are going to be pretty small and pretty easy to accomplish, some of these bigger items could take a few different phases to determine the level of feasibility. And you'll see right off the bat, we refer to those various levels of study to make sure that the risk and reward are appropriate for the community. So right off the bat, conducting an indoor and outdoor aquatics feasibility study to determine what the actual needs and interest of the community is, start assigning some approximate size, land use, investment, and potentially cost revenue, cost return on such a facility to get all of that upfront information. As part of that conversation, as well as determining what would happen to the actual Merkel Aquatic Facility itself. There's the opportunity within that as well to do at least a preliminary design of the scope and cost of the new facility, putting all of those various ideas to paper to get a better understanding of your potential investment. And of course, for big picture items, one of the top strategies we always consider but are not committed to at this point is there might be an opportunity to go forth with another referendum again. Should that be the case, there's probably a sub-step in there for a bit of a pre-election education support generation to determine if this does even make it onto a ballot. Depending on the results of that, either it might go through and advance with development, or there could be some additional alternatives that could be considered as well to still try to meet that indoor and/or outdoor aquatic goal, which could be some other funding potentials. Those could include things like public-private partnerships, partnerships with other public agencies, seeking out grant opportunities. There could also be an opportunity to look at a phased implementation approach to find a way to break a facility into smaller and more achievable portions. It could involve your current Merkel Aquatic Center with some sort of in-place renovation or replacement. And as I already mentioned, partnership opportunities could become a funding potential, could also become an access potential if there is another provider in the area who might be able to help meet that access without placing the burden solely back on the city. And that brings us through item 1. Oh, no, thank you. I know that was a lot, and I know that we started you off right away with a big item. I want to pause before we move on to see if there's any questions or thoughts. Okay, well, we can always come back to it later. All right, Item number 2 ties very closely into number 1, which is a need for additional indoor recreation space. As you probably saw in your memo, there's also the potential that as we look at outdoor aquatics and potentially indoor, there is some potential overlap between those types of facilities, either if any aquatics make it inside or even just the support amenities such as locker rooms, restrooms, etc. So while we could look at needs 1 and 2 separately, they may also make sense to look at in combination, either concurrently or sharing some study resources, or they could end up being combined if that makes the most sense moving forward when we come time to strategize. So speaking of indoor, outside of that aquatics conversation, expanded indoor space was another highly identified priority amongst many of the Connect phase input sessions. Specifically, multi-purpose rooms and space, basketball courts, and walking tracks were highly requested items both in McHenry as well as trending recreation amenities, really nationwide. Indoor facilities, much more than aquatics, do have potential for revenue generation much more frequently. There's also, outside of that main recreation facility, we also observed during our inventory phase, there are several small support buildings throughout the city that do provide some alternative locations for expanded indoor space as well that are worth considering. So as we move into the next slide, there's that point I made about how anything with indoor space, particularly if we begin looking at Knox Park, where Merkel is now, where your existing recreation center is now, that you'll want to consider these two needs holistically together. That's very similar to your aquatics. You would want to run a similar style of indoor space needs facility study where you would look at many of the similar items, developing potential layout, potential program and scope, and potential design and cost for that new facility to help determine what those needs are, what can be afforded, and what those might look like for an upfront investment versus a return on that. There's also opportunities within that phase to look at things like membership, and other programmatic elements that could be accommodated within such a facility. If we continue to the next page, very similar to the aquatics, anytime we talk about these potentially large budget items, referendum is always an option that we put on the table for consideration. Should that go forward, we would recommend that it has a similar approach to the outdoor aquatics, which is why we say that you might want to look at those two items together to determine the true scope of what could be accomplished. And very similarly to that aquatics item, there are other approaches that could be considered as well. Other funding potentials through things like grant programs, once again a phased implementation approach, much like what was done for the current rec center, where their current building was constructed with a plan for future expansion should the need arise, and again partnership opportunities. So we would consider each of those a strategy potentially with or without referendum funding, depending on how that upfront study might proceed. So we continue to the next slide. We also mentioned some of the smaller indoor facilities across the city limits. There's the Althoff Concession and Restroom Building, the Lakeland Park Community Center, the Knox Park Barn, and the Peterson Historic Farm barn location. Each of those is really kind of more of a satellite facility spread out throughout the city. We recommend that each of those be evaluated to see if they can help meet some of the additional needs, things like storage, maintenance, or if there is some satellite programming that might make sense to move to some of those other locations. And finally, last item that I think is more of a wish list, but we are dreaming big, we are looking 5 years and beyond, is if there is any interest down the line for a field house with indoor synthetic turf. Specifically, that could be part of this greater Knox Park campus that already exists. It could also become a Peterson Park location, given its high sports field. Those are just a few of the locations we've discussed. All right. Strategy number 3 is improving upon and maintaining existing park offerings. As we move into the background, the greatest reasons that people in the online survey were dissatisfied with parks were outdated or inadequate facilities, or that the condition and availability of comfort amenities just weren't provided. Those are typically things like shade seating. There were also some concerns raised about playground conditions, field drainage, and parking. And just to point out, there is a maintenance staff that's currently 6 people across over 40 parks and several hundred acres. So you guys are doing a lot with not a lot of resources currently. When we compare you to other recreation agencies in the Midwest of a similar population size, we found that staff is significantly lower than what other agencies offer per 1,000 acres. So when we talk about why people might be unsatisfied, why things might be outdated, we kind of start to see some connections between where resources may or may not be available. As we continue through, we've pulled out several parks specifically that we felt could be good candidates for a refresh, either due to the age and condition of their existing amenities or due to their location within the city and the types of amenities offered there. As you've already heard tonight, several of these parks have already had some elements being refreshed, either upcoming in the next year or several items that were updated in 2024. Your memo includes several of those on the list. Just for your reference, this has been a little bit of a process, so we did want to acknowledge the work that's already being done. Specifically, East Beach Park, West Beach Park, Henry Shores Beach, Lakeland Park, Hoff Park, Knox Park, and Cold Spring Park were all opportunities we identified that could benefit from a refresh. We also identified Miller's Riverfront Park as another opportunity for some additional work. We understand that there was some recent completion at that location with parking lot, restroom facilities, and river access, but continuing to provide observation locations on the water, additional trail opportunities, possibly some citywide connectivity to some other non-vehicular routes are all strong opportunities at that location. And of course, as parks have aging amenities or other capital improvements, continuing to identify, plan for, and budget those so that we can try to help you reduce surprises and be proactive in managing your various properties so that we have fewer places and fewer locations where you have that dissatisfaction due to condition. All right, I believe that's it for number 3. Shall I pause any questions before we continue? All right, I guess everyone is just saving them up for me, or everyone really wants to go home. No. We might, 5 minutes, maybe not.
No, you're good. You're good.
All right, need 4, providing new outdoor amenities to align with national trends. So as we go into the background, there are some specific amenities that we've seen trending and typically have been trending for a long time. Pickleball being one of the fastest, in fact, the fastest growing recreation amenity nationwide and has been for several years. Multi-purpose walking and biking trails are also always among frequently requested amenities. I believe that also aligned with the citywide survey that was released earlier this year as well. Other requested amenities are nature and interpretive trails, fishing piers, disc golf, outdoor fitness, spray pads and water play, and lawn games. Nationally, we see that while there may have been less interest locally, other national trends to keep an eye on as we think of Henry as a leader in recreation services are synthetic turf fields, inclusive play, aquatic exercise, basketball, soccer, and football. Good news, several of those items on your list are well on their way, specifically the inclusive playground and several of those waterfront and shoreline fishing updates that have been completed in 2024. As we go into the strategies themselves, for each of these in-demand or trending activities, we've provided a few potential park locations where we think they might be a good fit. Again, these are all preliminary. Any study would require some additional evaluation to confirm that it still does comply with park usage and would be an appropriate use for not just the park itself, but surrounding neighborhood area. Typically, things like pickleball, spray pads or water play, a multi-purpose artificial turf field would all be things that we would consider community park amenities, would need to have support of some adjacent facilities like parking lots, drive-to access, where some of your smaller items like those multi-purpose trails, like providing some fishing piers, would be very appropriate at most of your park locations, particularly ones for fishing piers, obviously something on the Fox or on Lake McCollum. Similarly, we heard a lot about swimming beach access from a few of your online survey participants. really just emphasizing that that is the activity at Peterson Park due to the staffing and other logistical components of providing that amenity safely. So we continue on to the next item. Number 5 is to evaluate and/or activate underutilized parks. So I mentioned there are over 40 parks in the city of McHenry. They're all of various sizes and various designs to encourage different uses. However, there were a few that we know is maybe not being utilized at their full potential. Peterson Historic Farm requires substantial upkeep, has several of those facilities on it with the barn and other older farm buildings, but really is not heavily utilized. Hickory Creek Farm operates as a leased property within the downtown. I believe Walsh Park is very similarly operated, and Millstream subdivision beaches are generally overgrown and inaccessible to public use. As we move into specific strategies, the first question, of course, is how each of these facilities should be utilized. So Peterson Historic Farm, we noted right away as an incredible opportunity for your city that not every community has. It has a lot of potential, either within farm capacity, either as a preservation or renovation potential. It could become a specialized development to focus on that farm history. This could be something that does not have to be taken fully in-house, as you see in your memo, but could also be done with the collaboration of some of your community or affiliate program partners or other organizations like conservation districts. This also could become a park for additional development for some additional active park use as well if that farm or that historic educational component is less desirable. And as I already mentioned, the waterside properties, Millstream Subdivision Beaches, Pheasant Valley Park, both have the opportunity with their open water access to fulfill some of those highly in-demand recreation amenities we already touched on with shoreline fishing, with trails, with nature, education, exposure. All right. We also called out the downtown park spaces. Those are really excellent locations for exposure to the Parks and Recreation Department and are currently served a pretty valuable use, one of which is supplementing some of the local community development with the business, with the restaurant lease, others of which I believe are already have been discussed for some additional more communal, more civic-minded open spaces within your downtown areas. And of course, we know that there is substantial acreage that is owned by the city, but that is leased out for agricultural land and at this time is not needed for additional recreation development, so that does continue to be an appropriate land use that should be maintained for the foreseeable future. All right. That brings us over to item number 6, which is address some park distribution deficiencies in underserved areas of the community. As we move into the next slides, I'm going to throw a lot of numbers that probably don't mean a lot to you right now. The majority of parks are localized around the Fox River and downtown. In total, about 5,547 McHenry residents are not served by parks across the entire city, and we call out a few specific geographic areas where service is limited. So as we go into the next slides, Suzanne, I might actually ask you to skip ahead a little bit if you don't mind. I apologize for the size. When we put together our planning area map, which is on the next page, we looked, many of you will remember, we looked for barriers to safe pedestrian access. This is what those blue lines are. We then applied each of your active recreation parks, your mini parks, your neighborhood parks, community parks, and applied the nationally recognized access to each of those locations. Areas in orange represent where your residents are being served. The darker orange means that residents within those areas have access to more than one location within the appropriate distance to that recreation location. Areas without any orange are those gaps in your community. So when we saw those planning areas numbered on the previous screen, this is what that refers to. So you can see it graphically here, and in that previous table we had referred to where we actually used some mapping software to get the approximate number of residents served. The reason we look at things in this level of detail is to understand where opportunities may exist to expand service, as well as the impact that you would provide to your residents by expanding said service. So looking at these, there are several strategies for how service might be expanded that could be providing access across those blue planning area boundaries. as simple as providing signalized road crossings or other safe pedestrian access so that those barriers no longer prevent or restrict access. It could also become a acquisition opportunity, and we're not saying you have to go out and start buying land right now. We know you already have quite a few acres, but having this information in the background is always helpful to understand. Should a new opportunity come, you can at least have a starting point for that conversation if a land purchase or a land acquisition or donation makes sense for you. Particularly as we look along the west side of your community, there are several large estate-style properties, and so understanding that as those properties may become subdivided, may become new homes, understanding how those new homes would require or not require service, and how to best work with those developers for developer match contributions are all part of this need to help expand your service to underserved portions of the community. All right, that was a lot. Needed a visual aid for that one. Is everyone still with me? Great. I like this group because I feel like you always do your homework. I think we can move right along to number 7, which ties very closely into number 6, which is improving the citywide non-vehicular connectivity. As we move into the background, we already mentioned that multi-purpose walking and biking trails are always high-interest recreation activities on a national, state, and in this case, a local level. We heard from our survey participants as well as at all of the workshops that non-vehicle connectivity is a priority, as well as in the 2020 McHenry County Pedestrian Plan. Sorry, that was unclear. We also referenced the 2020 McHenry County Pedestrian Plan to understand how regional connections might relate back to the city itself. As we move into strategies, we recommend that you continue to be involved in those larger planning initiatives. Of course, the city can only manage and maintain and control city property, but when opportunities arrive to connect to those larger plans or be involved and advocate for yourselves in those larger plan initiatives, that's always a great step forward to helping to provide those routes without putting the effort solely on city staff and city resources. We also recommend expanding trail offerings at existing parks, with a few specific ones having been called out in documents as having the opportunity for additional trail or additional trail connection to existing regional systems, which is that last bullet point on the slide. All right. We also look at your community demographics, and we do see a few opportunities to align with some of who your residents are as we continue the background. Henry is what we call aging in place, which is to say many of your residents are choosing to stay in town as they enter their what we call active adulthood of 55 plus and eventually retirement age, with up to 31.7% of residents expected to be over 55 by 2028. Survey participants frequently requested more opportunities for all ages, which does include the senior group, and specifically senior programs and activities were brought up more often than any of the other age groups in our open-ended questions. And planned new residential development in the west half of the city does have the potential to change demographics. So while we know that there is a significant active adult and senior population today, understanding what new development might occur and recognizing how that might change demographics could also adjust your planning in the future. As we move into strategies, the first is to help stay abreast of these trends, is to develop a focus group to help staff out. This could include senior citizens, senior groups. It could be as well in collaboration with some of your existing community providers like the library and the township senior activity center who already exist. It could also be the other major underserved group is teenagers, because no one ever knows how to provide safe and appropriate recreation to teenagers. So sometimes we've found that working with school districts and asking those teens and tweens and children for their input themselves can be an effective way to better understand where services may be lacking for those groups. With that as well, understanding seniors, teens, and other special interest or special age groups, understand that that might also relate back to those indoor space studies, either within a larger recreation complex or maybe some of those other properties you have spread throughout your city. All right. Number 9, of course, is evaluate funding opportunities and resources. This is our big one, right? We know that partnerships have proven successful in the past with other city development. We also know that developer contributions may be useful, as we already alluded to. Land donations may be very valuable in new communities or new developments, but a cash in lieu can also be very beneficial for promoting long-term development and maintenance of what you already have, which we know is of great importance to yourselves and the community. We also recognize that there are additional funding sources that could become available. Various grant programs that focus on very minute things like inclusive play, all the way up to full park or for full facility development, and just about any amenity in between you might think of. Opportunities to establish TIF districts if an appropriate opportunity arises, and potential bond opportunities as well if we start getting into some bigger picture items. Specifically, a lot of these are here on the screen that we just mentioned. A little sneak peek: when we start talking about prioritization after tonight's conversation, we will look for opportunities to align with some of the more common sources, some of those more common grant opportunities as well. And of course, where you do have existing partnerships, making sure that those agreements are being evaluated. I know major organizational changes might sound scary. We might workshop that a little bit. What we mean there is, say your affiliate soccer program changes the numbers of teams they offer for a specific age group or starts providing travel sports. Say your local school district has a new gym facility. Those are the types of organizational changes that we recommend you revisit, go back to the table, and work with your affiliates to continue to provide access that's mutually beneficial for all parties involved. And finally, 10, is to make some small improvements to the back-of-house operations. As we mentioned, it is a relatively small number of staff who are taking care of quite a lot of properties and facilities across a pretty large geographic area. Staff input throughout the Connect phase noted some areas where they feel like additional resources would be really helpful to elevate services, including marketing to help spread the word, improve participation, and also improve perception, as well as specialized staff that could help with specific services or parks, should you choose to do some more focused developments on things like your riverfront and commercial properties, should you choose to do something different with the Peterson Farm or the horse farm, whose name just escaped, Hickory Creek, thank you. Having an in-house expert can sometimes be beneficial to help manage your unique aspects. Similarly, we noted summer camps as being in high demand and regularly overbooked, so perhaps expanding your staff resources could help you expand those operations, meet some community interest, and potentially become an additional revenue generation to help fund some of your other ideas and initiatives. In addition to those items we just went over, we know that a lot of the existing smaller scale planning opportunities that you already do are going to be critical to your success moving forward. Your community investment plan and other capital planning, budgeting, and schedule initiatives, of course, should continue on their regular basis. Continuing to participate in other community planning and improvement initiatives like that 2020 bike plan we mentioned, weaving in the Parks and Recreation Department with that larger citywide plan are all excellent ways to manage resources and get a fuller idea of the city and its scope, as well as resources and commitments, and to continue to assess and define department structure within, not within, the city government. Knowing that there are several tasks as you've had success on your Riverwalk and with some of your larger festivals and events. Several of these items have been kind of taken on by park staff, and getting more clear definition and dedication of resources could really help the department manage their efficiencies and continuation of some of these successful programs moving forward. So that was a lot awfully fast. I'll hit on next steps very briefly, and then maybe we open it back up for questions. So as I mentioned, these are preliminary. These are not mutually exclusive. Our next steps is to incorporate any comments we hear from you today, modify, strike, or add anything that needs to be adjusted within this list, and then we will go back as a consultant team, a Talk Design Group, as well as our architectural consultants, FGM, who were unable to be here tonight, to start aligning these into a 5-year calendar. We'll get these largely grouped by their needs and plan these out on a quarterly basis for the next 5 years. So this will just be build a building. And we won't just leave you with that. We'll plot out where we think you should begin planning, doing those feasibility studies, when you might want to pause that process to consider how you want to fund this if it goes to referendum, if you pursue other strategies. For things like your parks improvements, we'll look for opportunities to align with common grant funding like OSLED so that you can prepare a plan and a budget and be grant application ready when those opportunities arise. We also always include additional categories for things like those recurring and best practice items. Maybe you don't need to build a trail in every park, but maybe every park you do touch in the next 5 years has some trail amenities. Maybe every time you do renovate a park, you look for an opportunity to add some in-band amenities that are appropriate for that site. So that would be our opportunity to kind of set in stone some of these items so that it isn't just 16 pages, but it becomes more bite-sized and achievable. And of course, throughout the process, there will be opportunities for additional feedback and review, an opportunity to see this calendar as a working document, and really this calendar remains a working document even after adoption of the report, because we know nothing stands still, and this will be a living document that can be updated and adjusted as your community and your resources change. So I believe that is about it. As I mentioned, we're wrapping up the Envision phase tonight with these alternative strategies. Throughout the next month of January will be our prioritization to pick the strategies that are preferred and then start to organize them into that action plan. And then the final deliverable will be a report document that includes the strategies, the calendar, and everything we've done to this point today. So that is a lot condensed into a little time, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Good job. Get a drink of water.
Real quick question. Suzanne, could you send us this presentation? Is that all right with you?
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, comments? Alderman Miller?
First of all, thank you for the report. I spent a lot of time reading it, and your presentation obviously summates it nicely. I have two great concerns, and obviously, Bill, you and I have talked about this. I would love to do it all, but of course, it's all about the money, and we already know that just an aqua center is $50 million?
Not quite there yet, but.
Close.
Yes.
It wasn't 35, 44. So $44 million just for an aqua center, which is just one.
And a gym.
Oh, and a gym.
Yeah.
Which was just one of your recommendations on 300 that you just presented to us. So I get it that this is just a big plan moment, but I think it is important that we all open our eyes to this is expensive stuff. And even if we found grants and additional money, and thank you, Rise Up, for your continuing support to our city and all that you do, this isn't in our budget now or in the near future. So we have to be realistic about what we take on and how we take it on. And one of the significant slides that I saw is that we do serve 22,000 residents with a park in their area, and we don't serve 3,000 residents, which I think we're at 87% served and 13% not served. I was pretty happy with that number. When we look at the unserved areas and the type of properties that are there. So I do like your focus on what we have and making it better, but my greatest concern, and I appreciate your work, is money. And the fact that we don't have an endless source. You and I already talked about, you have all these resources, how do we tap into them, and how do we get outside funding? And I think that's going to be a lot of the decision-making that we look at in January and February on even long-term. The aquatic center, you got the quote 3 years ago, and it went up 14% in 2 years. So I wouldn't even know how to plan out 5 years at this point. But thank you for your work. I think you summated nicely the input that we all looked at and participated in, and it doesn't surprise me. We haven't done a lot but maintain the parks. We haven't improved them in years, other than our new pickleball courts. So it's time.
Yeah, and-
Thank you.
And thank you, Councilwoman, or Alderwoman. You're absolutely right. The easy part is coming up with the ideas. The hard part is prioritization, which is our next step. And so, to your point, we know that you're not going to do all of this in 5 years. You may not do all of this in 10 years. What we're looking for really tonight, and obviously, of course, after tonight, we'll give you more time to digest and get your feedback back to us, is what rises to the top. And if what rises to the top does turn into a large expense item, we want to start planning for it now, so that if it does come, if it does come several years down the line, you're setting yourself up for success, whatever that looks like. If it's budgeting, if it's pursuing outside funding, if it's adding a % escalation to accommodate for market changes, which we know unfortunately never seem to go down. That's why we want to have these rise to the top. One other thing we will look at when we get to the calendar and we start doing our prioritization exercise is we'll consider a number of factors when we take our first pass at placing these items. We'll look at what is immediately achievable, what's the highest need. If something has a safety concern or a use concern or is in really high demand, that might rise to the top over something that maybe is a big picture wish list, but maybe isn't as critical to the daily operations. As I already mentioned, we'll also look at how long certain things take. So if we know something is a more involved process, be it due to funding, permitting, building community consensus, we'll say, when would you like to achieve this by? And we'll work backwards from there to see how you can start to line those up. I mentioned as well, this is a living document. We know that some things might change. You might have community interest might change. Pickleball might disappear tomorrow, although I would bet it doesn't. So there may be factors that change. And so in addition to the report we prepared today, we do include 3 years of coming back annually, seeing what got done, what didn't, anything that's changed, and helping you kind of adjust and move things on your calendar as needed as well. So we will help with that living document and determining how things are working out through it. I think that is what I wanted to say. I guess the other thing I would mention as well is some of these items, if they don't make it into the 5-year, we still find that if you think they're important to yourselves, to the community, we still like to document them even if they don't end up on a calendar. As you've heard, this is a update to an older plan. If these issues are still of a concern or of interest when you go to your next planning option, that just helps build that understanding of how critical or how much of a priority some of these items are if you aren't able to accomplish them now. Understanding if they matter to your community today is always very helpful to know in 5, 10, 20 years if they are still of importance. I think we had another.
Yeah, I've got real quick. I was kind of captivated by when you were talking about serviced areas and unserved serviced area. How do you define an unserviced area?
Right, so those would be the areas that don't have what is defined as appropriate access to a recreation amenity. We base this on the National Recreation and Parks Association's guidelines, which we went over with staff and decided to adopt kind of as they're written. It uses active parks, which are what we call kind of the base of your park system. Those are your mini parks, which are very small in area and serve a very limited immediate adjacent neighbor need. They're typically walk-to destinations within a quarter-mile walk. It's typically a playground, maybe a very small sports field or court, typically not parking or restrooms. The next unit of active park is neighborhood park. Very similar to mini parks, they serve their immediate neighbors, but are generally walk-to destinations, which is why we typically don't see people crossing those barriers to access to get to them. But because they offer slightly bigger playgrounds, slightly more amenities, they have a larger desire range. People are more willing to access them. They have a half-mile radius. And then your final unit is your community park. Those are your destinations. That's going to be your Knox Park, your Fort McHenry Whispering Hills Park. Sorry? Peterson Park. Yes, exactly. Those are multiple sports fields larger destination playground, your inclusive playground will likely start attracting more folks once it becomes available. Those, because those are drive-to destinations, they have attractions that pull people in because of their uniqueness. Those ignore those boundary lines because we expect people to be more willing to get in their cars and travel, and we assign a 1 mile distance to those. Does that answer your question, or is there more explanation I missed?
Yeah, it does. I'm just, I guess in layman's terms, I'm just trying to understand that on serviced areas, and I think it's maybe like neighborhoods. Maybe you brought up the quarter-mile walk to get to a park is one way you defined it, and I just was trying to understand it because when I look at this map, I'm trying to visualize where those areas are, and I think that's maybe
one thing that could help as we just send out additionally is if this is a great representation of all the circles overlapping, and it shows you that service area when you put all those parks together. We actually Hitchcock had done a number of slides for us that broke them down into each of the neighborhood parks, that small circle, so you can see when those circles start expanding, this is all the circles overlap. So it looks a little bit convoluted, but when you start looking at each of those specific types of parks and their service area, that could be helpful, and we could send those slides out as well as a breakdown just of the neighborhood, the community, those type of parks together. So if that's something that council would like to see, it was in our last presentation, but that's something we can send out again, just for a breakdown of this visual right here into 3 or 4 different slides when they start overlapping.
No, thank you.
Alderman Davis?
Just to kind of build on what Alderman Santee had just mentioned. So is there any attention given to the actual usage of those parks, not necessarily just vicinity of neighborhoods and people and stuff like that, when consideration of usage or utilization of that?
If you mean tracking number of visitors per day, for example, I'm not sure. Is that what you're referring to? Or?
So when you define it, you're saying within a certain vicinity, but if there's a park there or some other resource that's not being utilized, is that taken into account, I guess, when we're looking at these?
Yeah, so that's kind of where observation kind of fills in the blanks. We don't really have the resources to achieve hard data or exact numbers. What we can do is talk to staff, understand how things are being used, see the deterioration or the use patterns in things like the grass or the play equipment to understand if you can usually start to see if something is more popular than another. We also can just understand, as we look at trends, we might know if an amenity is not utilized. It's very rare we see people playing horseshoe in the horse pits these days, but we know that playgrounds continue to be very popular. Some communities might see tennis decrease as pickleball increases, so we look for those trends and start to try to understand how that might layer into these properties as well. But there is, to an extent, some assumptions and some observations we do become reliant on at that point.
Any questions? Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time. So, next steps, if there are any further comments, I think we're looking to start our prioritization, as I said, in early January. So if anyone does think of anything else, any more feedback, any adjustments you'd like made to the list, I would just believe that Mr. Hobson will collect those and pass them on to us, and we will be sharing the next steps with you relatively shortly. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. Happy holidays. All right. Bill, anything you need to add?
No, just thank you all for your input and reviewing that. Thank you to Hitchcock and especially to Bridget and her presentation. I just can't say enough of working with them as a partner, and it guides us. And it's not always the big things. It's, I know that there's 10 things of priorities, but it's really how do we holistically serve our community, and are there things that we're missing? Are there trends that we need to take into account? What are we missing? And it's been such a breath of fresh air to work with a partner like Hitchcock to be able to guide us into the future for our park system. Thank you.
All right. Any staff reports? Go ahead, Suzanne.
Good evening. When we set the schedule for the 2025 City Council meetings, there was some discussion about the potential cancellation of the meeting that's scheduled for January 6th. Just wanted to give this council an update. Right now, currently, we have zero action items on that agenda. Director Lynch has also confirmed that if we do not need to have that meeting, there's no finance purpose to have that meeting necessarily, and we could approve the bills at the second meeting in January. So I just wanted to get City Council's appetite for canceling that meeting if we do not have any items that come forward for the agenda.
Good?
All right,
Good.
so I will keep you posted. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Any other staff reports?
Oh, and happy holidays.
No? All right. I have nothing other than Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you. And City Council comments. Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Just a quick update. We're having our first Pearl Street Market meeting tomorrow night, and opening night's going to be May 15th. And I did get that number, Bill, from that phone number. Yeah.
All right. Alderman Cook, go ahead.
Okay, have we collected any money from the county for the boathouse, and have they squared up with the city with building that?
Yeah, I know that we've invoiced them, at least twice, and I think there was a final payment that, we're working with them on.
Any other city council?
Yeah, no, what?
She's looking it up. She's looking it up.
Oh, she's looking it up.
Any other city council comments while it's being looked at? Alderman Glenn?
Yeah, I want to mention from 2 meetings ago, when we talked about the space, what is it, modulars or whatever, out in front of the rental place, or the storage place, rather. I just want to mention the fact that we have certain guidelines that we follow as far as how we bring things back, and we did not do it properly. I don't care what the attorney said. We did not do it properly. You cannot combine an alderman bringing up to revisit something as a motion, has to be voted by the entire council before you can make another motion, because it's not revisited until the entire council votes on it. Now, it probably would have passed anyway, but we have a procedural that we should follow, only because of the fact that if somebody were to take us to court on it, and I'm not saying on this necessarily item, but, we have certain procedures that we do, and we need to take it. And again, I went through the Robert's rules and exactly how that's to be done. So I would ask that we be careful in the future that we do things the proper procedures. Thank you.
We did have that conversation, so thank you.
The sheriff paid in full.
Excellent. So, but right to the general account, or general fund, right?
I believe we use our donations to pay it, but they've been repaid now.
No, I know that, I just...
Yep.
So, right, ground zero. Excellent, thank you.
Any other city council comments? Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, motion to adjourn, second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Alderman Miller.
Thanks. I just have a comment. I wanted to thank all the cities that came to the luncheon on Friday. That was, again, an amazing event and a great opportunity to thank all our workers that work hard each and every day. So if you're listening or you're not, for the record's sake, thank you for all that you do, each and every one of you. It was an honor and a privilege to attend.
Agreed. Motion to adjourn? Alderman Sandy?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Okay.
Alderman McClatchy?
What?
Second?
I thought I had the motion, but yeah, I'll second it.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Baskett?
Yes.
Alderman Davis?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.